The Chiefs just made another move to further fortify their offensive line by signing a former second-round pick from the 2015 NFL Draft, and that is the 8-year veteran left tackle Donovan Smith. So let's talk about it, but first, how about those? All right, so there I was just casually eating dinner with my family, thinking I was done working for the day when I checked Twitter out of habit, like I always do in the offseason, to make sure no Chiefs news dropped, and Chiefs news did indeed drop. So back in the basement I went, and here I am, because the Chiefs added to their offensive line tonight by signing veteran Donovan Smith, which was first reported by Tom Pelissero, who said, veteran offensive tackle Donovan Smith is signing with the Chiefs on a one-year deal worth up to $9 million per source. And my immediate first thought was, with what money? They had like $4 million before the draft, but hey, some say the salary cap is a myth, and I'm also assuming this deal is laced with incentives, and the initial hit is going to be much lower than that, but I have no clue what the contract details are for the time being. As soon as I do know, I will update you, be sure of that. But from here, I want to talk more about Donovan Smith and his career, his performance from last year, and finally, how I think he will fit in with the Chiefs offensive line for the 2023 season. Smith is 6'6", 338 pounds, and has 34 3/8-inch arms. He was drafted in the second round of the 2015 NFL Draft by the Bucs, playing his entire career there at left tackle, starting 124 games over the past 8 seasons with them, missing only 6 games in those 8 seasons, and 4 of those 6 missed games were actually last season as he battled through a hyperextended elbow, and some say he may not have fully recovered from that injury for quite a while, and that is why his performance took a dip last season. More on that in a moment. Smith was then released by the Bucs this offseason, which freed up nearly $10 million in cap space, and then he eventually, today, landed in Kansas City. But how did he perform last season? Well, if you look at his grades from Pro Football Focus, Smith was ranked 51st overall out of 57 tackles who played 50% of snaps last year, so definitely near the bottom, but a little higher if you just look at his pass blocking grade, 34th out of 57, which actually ranked him just slightly lower than Orlando Brown Jr. Donovan's overall grade was much lower due to his poor run blocking grade, which has him at 56th out of 57 tackles last season who played 50% of snaps. And a random side note, the only tackle to grade out worse than Smith in run blocking was ironically Jawaan Taylor, the Chiefs' newly added tackle from free agency, one of the first moves they made a few months ago. However, Smith only allowed 35 pressures compared to Orlando Brown's 58. But it's worth noting that Orlando played quite a bit more snaps. He played 1,324 total snaps. Meanwhile, Donovan played 990 due to missing those games because of his elbow injury. But if you average the amount of pass blocking snaps Donovan had compared to Orlando, and look at the amount of pressures per snap ratio, however you want to word it, Smith averaged 1 pressure for every 20 pass blocking snaps. Meanwhile, Orlando averaged a pressure for every 15 pass blocking snaps. So Smith gave up less pressures on average, but he did give up 6 sacks to Orlando's 4. I will say though, Smith was protecting Tom Brady, who literally cannot move from the pocket to save his life. On the flip side, Brady also has one of the fastest release times of any QB in the league, so that does help the tackles out as well. Another thing I noticed about Donovan is that he was tied for the second most penalties of all tackles in the league with 12, so that is a lot of penalties. But a couple things to note here about Smith's performance last season. The elbow injury affected his overall performance because he graded out higher in every category compared to Orlando Brown Jr. in 2021. That's overall, run block grade, pass block grade, definitely better in the 80s, at least according to PFF, compared to Orlando Brown Jr. So I'm going to go ahead and assume the Chiefs have done their due diligence, recognize this, and are confident that a healthy Donovan Smith is still an upgrade or close to an upgrade from Orlando Brown Jr. at a much cheaper cost. And with all that being said, what are the plans for the Chiefs this season with their offensive line? Well, Nate Taylor of The Athletic said that the Chiefs are projecting Donovan Smith, who is considered fully healthy, so good news, to be a starter next season. At this point, both options are available to the Chiefs. Smith could start at left tackle with Jawaan Taylor at right or vice versa. However, I seriously doubt they would have Donovan Smith play at right tackle for the first time in his career and then Jawaan Taylor play left when he basically has very little experience on the left side in his career. So I do think the most likely option at this point is Donovan is the starting left tackle while Jawaan Taylor is the starting right tackle. Another scenario that could play out would be that Donovan Smith is merely a security blanket for the left tackle spot in case of injury, or in case Jawaan Taylor for some reason doesn't translate to the left side like they hope. So it could also look like this. Jawaan Taylor is the starting left tackle, Donovan Smith is the backup left tackle, and either Lucas Niang or the newly drafted Wanya Morris, or I guess Darian Kennard, is the starting right tackle, though I do think that option is much less likely because a one-year deal worth up to $9 million for Donovan Smith, that sounds pretty expensive for a backup left tackle. No matter what scenario ends up playing out, though, the addition of Donovan Smith only helps the O-line as a whole. Matt Lane from KCSN says, fingers crossed it's a low base and the move is to bring in a competent left tackle floor and competition to push Taylor in camp. Right tackle is still the same two, Niang and Wanya Morris, competing, but now you have an actual backup left tackle instead of forcing a young guy to be the swing tackle. Counterpoint is the best five on the line has Smith at left and a Taylor at right. Just not sold on the future left tackle options as it sits. Would be good to feel confident in both sides being set long term. Morris has played left tackle and right tackle. Most recent work has been at right the past 2 years, and he was better there. Could they see him as a developmental left tackle while Donovan starts for a year? I feel much better about Taylor's transition, but keeping him at right tackle provides guaranteed improvement. That's where I want to ask you guys, after going through all these scenarios, what are your thoughts on how the offensive line could look with the addition of Donovan Smith? It's intriguing that they could possibly be looking at Wanya Morris as the left tackle of the future, and they want him to sit under Donovan Smith, though they're paying Jawaan Taylor like a right tackle. So all these scenarios are pretty wild. That's why I want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?